Ladies and gentlemen, I don't do this a lot. I don't like to talk personally about things that are happening with me personally that are bad or whatever, because I know there are so many people within the sound of my voice. You're going through a horrible time. We've had people recently, friends of mine, have lost children. We have people battling major diseases. We have people struggling in poverty. I do not take that lightly. But on Friday night, my daughter, Reagan, who is 14, was involved in a near life-ending ATV accident. And when something like that happens with your child, it puts everything in perspective. I want to thank some people. I want to begin by thanking the Lord. I believe in angels, and I really believe in them now. Reagan was on an ATV Friday night that crashed, and I had 3 doctors tell me on Friday night at Children's Hospital at Erlanger that she very easily could have gone to heaven Friday night. It was a very serious situation. I got a call about 6 o'clock. I went out. And I personally was able to experience what we have reported on here, and I've reported on this station for 30 years. And that is the greatness of our first responders right here in this community. Let me tell you something. When the rubber meets the road and you have a personal need and a tragedy happens, let me say this, you want these men and women on your side. And they came out, and I want to thank them by name this morning, because I got with Jeff Stewart. He is the Bradley County Fire and Rescue Chief, and I asked him to give me the names of everyone who was on our call on Friday night. Fire Department Captain Corey Davis, Captain Brian Bancroft, Lieutenant Matt Hunzelman, firefighter Christian Prince, firefighter Jacob Dodson, that's the fire department. For EMS, Commander Tim Plemons. I'll come back to him in a second. Paramedics, Brian Hickman, EMT Chastity Wiggins from the Bradley County Sheriff's Department, Deputy David Harper, and Deputy Tucker Harold. The Lord used these people to help save my daughter's life on Friday night. Bottom line. But especially used Commander Tim Plemons. When I got there, I thought, well, not knowing a lot about what had happened, I thought it would be maybe a visit to our local emergency room. But it was deemed that out of precaution, Reagan would be flown by Life Force helicopter to Erlanger Medical Center in Chattanooga. I have said those words thousands of times over the last 30 years. Never thinking that my child would be on that plane, that helicopter. Tim Plemons, who I spoke with on Saturday, looked me in the eye as we were, you think about putting your child on a helicopter without you. And in that moment of chaos and somewhat fear and terror, and the worst feeling I've ever felt in my life, Tim Plemons, which I believe used by the Lord Jesus himself, looked me in the eye and said, "Steve, I'm a dad of a daughter. She's going to be fine. This is out of precaution." And God used that man for me. Friday night. And I'll never forget it. There was a moment Friday night as we were standing in the middle of a field and Life Force had landed, and I began to think of some of you who we have reported on over the years. And my daughter was in the ambulance being worked on. And Jennifer and I were standing outside of the ambulance, waiting for her to be unloaded out of that ambulance, and that stretcher to take her to Life Force was about 50 yards away. But you know what? I began to think of some of you and what you've dealt with. And at that moment, when she was loaded on to Life Force, and I got in her ear, and she was crying and she was scared. And but let me say that she was conscious the whole time. She was talking, badly hurt. But I got in her ear and I reminded Reagan of a prayer that I told her when she was a child and began to understand. And I told her brother this when he was born, of course when he was a child. There are 3 words that you can pray, and it'll move heaven and earth. Jesus, help me. I have told them that all of their lives. No matter how old they are, no matter where they are, no matter what the case is, if you say, "Jesus, help me," that will move the hand of God. And I whispered in my child's ear, my daughter Reagan Hartline, laying on a stretcher, getting ready to go into the Life Force helicopter, Friday night. And I said, "Honey, remember what I've always told you. Jesus, help me." And he will. And he did. She was flown to Children's Hospital in Chattanooga Friday night. And I want to thank some people there. We could not have been treated any better. Doctors, nurses, staff. There was a lady, a doctor who was a chaplain at Children's Hospital at Erlanger. Came right in immediately and brought the peace of God. They were wonderful. They were exemplary. I got to tell Dr. Charles Woods, the CEO of Children's Hospital, on Saturday, through my friend Jarrett Millsaps, the CEO of Tennova Cleveland. I got to tell him that Saturday. They were wonderful. Some of you have experienced this personally. You know what I'm talking about. I've never experienced this until Friday night. They were wonderful. To the friends and the family that I have heard from, and that Jennifer has heard from, and that Reagan has heard from, and that Holden has heard from, and our family has heard from, all I can say is thank you. I'm not used to being on this end of it. I'm really not. But I know that when it's your child, prayer is really all that matters. A word to parents this morning. Pray for your children. Pray for their protection. You know those days that you think may be a little boring, nothing really happening. Thank God for them. Thank God for days that nothing happens. Because let me tell you something. At every second of the day, there's tragedy. There's life-altering tragedy. And I thank God that there are so many wonderful, caring people right here. We live in the best place on earth. Here, Cleveland, Bradley County, the most special place on earth, with some of the best people in the world. And I thank you. I thank you for listening. Reagan is better. A lot of swelling. Her initial, when we got there Friday night, the great thing about Life Force, and God bless Life Force. God bless them. When we got there, they had already done the CT on her brain. It was good. We had miracle after miracle. Her whole body was affected. But she is at home. And I thank the Lord. I want to publicly thank God and thank some wonderful people. Wonderful, wonderful people. I promise this will be the last thing I say about this. I was just talking to Bridget about the situation with Reagan Friday night off the air. But Bridget, I was just telling you, and I feel I really need to say this publicly. The doctors told us Friday night that the seatbelt, there was a seatbelt on that ATV and they said that saved her life.
Wow.
So that's all. That's the last thing you'll hear me say about it. But they said the seatbelt saved her life. So I do want to add that.